First things, your quiz scores, which are irrelevant, will be irrelevant to your life in 5 months, but they'll definitely be irrelevant in a year. We'll get those out to you, I don't know. When are we going to do that? Soon. Just ask Lauren. Send emails to Lauren's personal email, and she'll respond to every one of them, right? Sorry about that. Okay, so, we'll get them as quickly as possible. But today we're going to talk about invisible strings. We're actually going to talk about the sociology, the study of sociology. What is the core of sociology? And I'm going to use as examples some present-day stuff. We're going to talk about the Penn State scandal, the Ohio current. I'm not sure if we can call the Ohio State what's happening or what happened or with their football program a scandal yet. I don't know if that's how people are talking about it. And we're going to talk about the Supreme Court hearings, but I'm going to do that in the context of understanding or talking about invisible strings and race relations. Okay? Cool? So let me say first off that I'm not going to say anything first off. So all of this is based on what is the most essential debate in the social sciences, and probably the humanities, and it's freedom and determinism or choice and chance. And the reason for that is that the reason it's the most essential debate is because everything that we talk about in the social sciences or regarding human behavior is an attempt to understand causality of human behavior. We want to understand why people do what they do and think what they think and believe what they believe. That's the whole field of sociology, and most of psychology, and much of cultural anthropology. So, in my humble opinion, today's class is probably going to be the most useful information that you will receive throughout the semester. Not really for anything that I'm going to say, but rather for the framework within which we're going to talk. Okay? Causality. Get it? We're always trying to understand why humans do what they do. And in the field of sociology, what we want to do is understand why groups of people behave in the way that they do. I have to say the following. So it's really quiet. Y'all are really quiet right now. And I'm always suspect when you're really quiet. So it's either A, that you're just tuned out because, it's a big weekend, I don't know, for whatever reason you're tuned out, or I'm just suspect. So I'm going to bring, hang on, I want to talk, I really want to say something to all of you, so pay attention. I honestly believe, and I'm not making this up, so you pay attention. I honestly believe this is the most important class of the semester and the most useful some of the most useful information you'll get in college. Not because it's from me, just because it's useful information. So here, causality. There are two fundamental sources of causality. Either internal sources are external. The internal are choices, are decisions, the motivations that come from within, are that we choose freely. Why I wore this shirt today, why I chose to talk about this issue today. Decisions that I make. How and why am I here teaching at Penn State? How and why did I get a PhD in sociology? Why did I get a PhD? Why did I go to school? Well, how is it that I'm not already dead from some of the things that I've done? What are the reasons for that? Why did I choose the shirt? Is it did I freely choose to wear this? Is it really my choice? Or are there factors and forces outside of my control? And fundamentally, causality is broken into two parts. Either the internal motivations, the stuff that comes from within, or the external, the stuff that's outside of us, factors and forces we don't see, society, expectations, socializations, the way we're raised, the things that we believe about, the things we've been told about the world and then we believe. And sometimes it's over here, the things we choose to believe, right? What is the choice? Do we make it, and do I make a choice to believe? I don't know, sometimes there are choices, I can't even make the choice. Sometimes it's really beyond, like, when is it my choice and when is it not my choice? And we're all fighting and arguing about that. And if you're hanging out, drinking a few beers this weekend and talking about anything, I have no idea why people voted for Trump, what's going on in Washington right now with the Supreme Court, why some people are rich, why some people are poor, all sorts of things, why you either will or will not make it through college, what your major is. We're going back and forth all the time, putting our causality into one of two places, either A, internal decisions, who we are and what we are, the choices we're really making, or B, the factors and forces outside of our control that are shaping us. The fact that you were born in a particular family that really socialized you to be an engineer. You never really thought about anything but being an engineer, and you would in a million years choose to be a theater major. Even though you might say, well, it's my choice to be an engineer. No, it's not your choice to be an engineer. If it's your choice to be an engineer, then why is it that everybody in your situation becomes an engineer and they don't become theater majors? Like, what is that? It's the back and forth. And so we're always trying to understand this causality. And in the world of race relations, causality is fundamental because we see these inequalities between people. And we want to understand why we have inequality. Is it like, why are white people on top? Is it white supremacy? Is it white racism? Is it things white people do? Or is it, I don't know, why are other people then on the bottom? Is it things they do? Do white people, do we just really just have this vision for how to organize the world and work harder and do this and do that? Or do we set up situations that make it more difficult and less possible for some groups to rise up to that? Why are Native Americans so poor? Why are they the poorest group in the United States? They were the first people here. They should be. They had a head start on everybody else. They should be doing really well. Why are they by far and away the poorest of all groups in the United States? Why? Is it themselves? Is it choices that Native Americans are constantly making to stay poor? Or is it factors and forces that are largely outside of their control? Or is it both? And if it's both, how do they entangle themselves together? And why is that guy on College Avenue right now homeless? How do you get homeless? And why if you give him $10,000, $500,000, will 2 years from now, he still be homeless? How is that? Will those be decisions that he freely makes, or will he make decisions that are really shaped by factors and forces that not even he understands? And so that's what we're arguing about and struggling with all the time. And what makes, by the way, side comment, a good life is our ability to disentangle those and understand when each force is coming into play in our own lives. But that's neither here nor there. So that's the basic side of it. So here, take a look at this. Great example. How is it that SAT scores increase on average with family income? For white people, for brown people, for black people, for Native Americans, for everybody. How is that? What is it? It's not just because you go to better schools. It's not because you pay for tutors. It's so many things that come together. And it's free choices. And it's not free choices. And it's one thing after another. Look at this. How is that? That's sociology, is always trying to answer those questions. But here. Here. Okay, so here. But there's another piece. All right, Doug. I gotcha. There's another piece. It's actually deeper. In good sociology, interesting sociology, dude, Do you have a question? Oh my God. Kick it out to me. What I said that as a side comment, that really the good life is understanding the way in which these things come together. Oh my God. Thank you for asking that question. Oh, you know what? Ask me the question when I'm done with this example. We'll come back to it, okay? You're asking, what do I mean that like to live the good life is understanding sociology at this level? I believe that so deeply. Ask me when I'm done with this. So look, the sociological imagination y'all, look, first off, we never make a free decision. It's not possible to ever make a free decision. So you cannot ever make a decision in a vacuum. Everything I think, everything I do, everything that I am about, the moment that I'm socialized, I give up my freedom and I'm following something, factors and forces outside of me. Even the fact that I walk on two legs is not a free decision. Human beings aren't naturally destined to walk on two legs. If you have a child and you don't socialize that child, that child won't learn to walk upright in this way. The child will be hunched over and so on. There's certain things about being human, mainly almost everything that we learn. So we never make free decisions. We're always wanting to think that we do. And this is part of being the hell of being an American, by the way, is that we live in this culture where we want to think and we want to believe that we're free, and we can't be free. It's not possible. You can be more free and you can be less free, but you can never be 100% free. So look, the sociological imagination, it is almost as though we are puppets on a string. And that we sort of, whatever we're doing, imagine that an infinite number of strings coming down and attaching themselves to our bodies, to our minds, to our feelings, our thoughts, our actions, everything. And they're coming down and it's sort of, we're being shaped by things all the time. Even when I have a free decision, like right now, I'm going to make a free decision to walk over here. And even as I do that, these strings are being pulled in such a way that I'm being shaped how I'm going to walk over here and what I'm going to do when I get there. And that's just the nature of life itself. And it is so deep that the best we can do is understand the ways in which these strings are organized in a particular way that they shape us in the ways that they shape other people. So sometimes some of us are connected in here by these strings, by certain strings, and others of us are connected by other strings, and it's just this pattern that goes on and on and on. And the strings never go away, and they're really deep, and good sociology is always looking for the ones that are the most invisible. So the classic study, by the way, this is what you got to understand race inequality. If you don't get this, you will never understand what's going on between racial groups. Okay? The classic study in sociology is about suicide. And the classic study is to say, look, not only are we shaped by society around us, but we are shaped by in ways that are most profound, such that even our most deeply personal behavior is being shaped by factors and forces outside of our control. And the most personal behavior that a human being could ever engage in is not masturbation, it's not sex, it's not even murder. It's killing oneself. It's suicide. Because there's nothing more deeply personal than that. You don't go out and read about it and think about it and talk to other people about it. It's a thing that is deep, deep within. And most people who commit suicide, as many, many of you know, commit suicide without ever talking to anybody else. They made a deeply personal decision, something within, something that was clicking and something that was all about them. And if they understood sociology before they committed that act of suicide, and I'm also speaking to those of you who currently and right now are thinking about suicide, because some of you are. Because in a class this large, there are some of you in here who are thinking about killing yourself. And so listen to me. Nobody sits down to commit suicide and says, hey, I'm thinking about killing myself, but I'm wondering the degree to which maybe it's not my decision. Maybe it's somebody else's decision. I wonder if I should think about this. And once in a while, people will say, you know what, I really better talk to somebody about this. But too often, they don't. As some of you well know, they don't. Because some of you, many of you, have people in your lives who have committed suicide, never told anybody. Everybody sat around afterwards and said, my God, what happened? I never would have known. I never would have guessed. The people in my life in that situation are too numerous to count. The people in the lives of former students of mine who have come and talked to me about it are too numerous to count. Nobody ever does that. But here's the thing. This is the power of sociology. If suicide was an individual act that people just randomly thought about and then decided if they were going to kill themselves. Wait, hang on, hang on, that was me. Yep. If suicide was a random act that people engaged in because they just thought about it. Got it? They just thought about it. Because they were depressed, they were unhappy. Lots of people are unhappy. Many of you are unhappy right now. Or today you're happy, yesterday you were unhappy. Today you're happy, a week from now you'll be unhappy. Right now you're okay, but a week from now your boyfriend or girlfriend is going to break up with you. And all hell's going to break loose. Or you're going to find out something about one of your parents or your siblings or God, who knows. I have no idea. But that stuff is happening all the time. And if suicide was an individual act, the suicide rate would be going up and down and up and down. Because people would randomly, and just based on their own whims of behavior, be making decisions about whether they or not they were going to kill themselves. You get that. You see how the rate would have to go up and down. It would never be stable. Because sometimes it would be really high and sometimes it would be really low. Why? Because people are on their own making choices to either take their lives or not take their lives. So it's a rate that goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. You get it, right? You see that? But that is not what we see. What we see is actually a really incredibly stable suicide rate in every society over time. And here, look at this. These aren't years, so these are in many years in between. So look, it goes just a little bit, and here we went down, but we didn't go down very much. This is per 100,000 people. This is the United States. That rate's really steady. And you know what that tells us? That tells us that there's something else going on that is shaping this rate. There are factors and forces outside of people's control that it's almost as though those factors and forces say, look, we need X or Y number of people to commit suicide this year. It's just going to happen that way. And next year, same thing. It's not going to be very different than this year because it has to happen that way because the rate is going to be stable. And so that means that when somebody sits down to make a decision about whether they're going to take a bottle of pills or pull a trigger or cut themselves or whatever it is, They think they're making an individual decision, but the fact is there are these individual strings that they're connected to, that are connected to everybody else. And that rate is going to be stable. And so they think, while they think they're making the individual decision, that there are factors and forces outside of their control that are shaping whether they make the choice or not to kill themselves. You get that, right? You see that? And so therefore, even in our most intimately personal moments in life, the thing that is so deeply personal that nobody else, you can't talk to somebody, okay, you could maybe, we have a case where this young girl seemed like she talked somebody into suicide. Look, that is such an extreme case. You don't talk people into killing themselves. You don't talk someone into taking their lives. There's just no way it's going to happen. It's a deep choice. And yet it's not a choice. Because if it was a choice, that would be stable. And it's not stable. And if that is not a choice, what else in our lives is not a choice? And this is the power of sociology. This is what we're doing all the time. So me as a white man, when I'm making decisions about how I'm going to act in the world, and I'm acting as a man, or a straight man, or a white man, or a working class man, and I'm, I was sitting in a meeting today with someone who is really, really powerful. And I'm sitting in that meeting, and I was sitting like this at the meeting, just like this, across from this person. And I'm thinking, wait, hang on, Sam, you're working class, you're from Toledo. Think about how you're sitting. Think about what you're saying. Think about all the ways in which you can't be anything other than you are because you just are what you are. And I'm trying to be different, and I'm not being different. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm being shaped in so many ways that I don't see and I don't understand. And if that's true for me, then it's also true for everybody else, including the person who's homeless, including the person who seems like they're making really bad decisions, including Native Americans who seem like, wow, they just can't, just struggling with so many things, including everybody. It's all happening. Those of you who cut, and many of you do. Many of you do. I know that. How do I know that? Because look, every semester in a class this large, the same number of you are cutting. You're scarring yourself. Because they're the same number. It's not going to change. If I put a survey out to the class to see okay, how many of you have cut or currently do cut? And I'm talking a lot of you cut. The number's going to be the same, semester after semester. And when you sit down and you pull out a blade or a pen or whatever it is that you use, for those who currently cut, and listen to what I'm saying, because you think you're making a choice. But if you were making a choice, then this number of people who cut, the number of people who take Social for 19 who cut would be changing all the time, and it's fucking not changing. And when you sit down to cut, let's say it's your leg or something, and you're thinking it's you doing that. It's not you doing that. A small part is, but the biggest part is not you. It's factors and forces that you don't see and you don't understand. Because if it really was you, the rate of cutting would be different. Every semester, sometimes it would be 10 people. Sometimes it would be 15. Sometimes it would be 40. Sometimes it would be 60. But when I ask in this class how many people either do cut or have cut, the number is like 50 or 60 all the time. Dude, 50 or 60 in a class this large, it's so many people. And yet every one of you thinks oh yeah, but this is me, it's my choice. It's not your choice. And so what this leads me to say is, look, so if it's not your choice, what are you going to do about it? That's the beginning of trying to understand how to get control of our own lives and how to make the decisions that we really want to make. And when you start making the decisions based on what's really happening to us, that's the beginning of living the good life. Because that's when we're taking responsibility for who we are and what we are. I'm not thinking that either A, I'm making choices when I'm not, or B, I can't make choices when I can. You see that? You get that? How that goes in that way? So by the way, those of you who A, are thinking about suicide, or B, who do cut, there are so many folks out there, people out there to talk to try to get this, whatever it is that's going on, under control, so that you actually can begin to take control and knowing what is and what isn't part of life. If we don't get that, you're never going to get race relations. Like, this is the deep stuff. The simple sociology is up here. The cool sociology is down here. It's really getting the hidden stuff. Man, it's really getting all that. Okay, so here. So here, let me give you one that affects this class. So people were doing some research on just bystander stuff. We're always doing all sorts of research. Remember the thing when I did the race switching piece, and we talk about all the different kinds of studies, or sort of prodding about studies that we do. Okay, so here's one, right? Bystander study. Can I use you? And can I just use, you were up here the other day as the white guy? I'll use you again. Okay, the white guy. Okay, we'll do this. So here's what we know. I'm going to show you the power of the deep stuff that we don't necessarily, this is like this unconscious stuff, okay? So if you, hang on. Wait, what's your name again?
Deja.
Deja? What is it again, bro? Tremaine. Okay, so here. If Deja has her books, let's say that Tremaine is over here, okay? And these are Deja's books, and you stay over there, and you drop that all over the floor, right? And it's just Tremaine, and Tremaine's in the room with Deja. Here's what's going to happen. He's going to help her pick it up, okay? He's going to help her pick it up. He just is, because that's just what's going to happen. 99.99% of the time, there's books all over the floor. He's going to help her pick it up. Okay? If it's me, another white man, and I drop my books all over the floor, and Tremaine is there, he's going to help me pick it up. If Tremaine drops this on the floor, Deja's in the room, she's going to help him pick it up. Got it? That's just basic human courtesy. Okay? Make sense? Now, if Tremaine drops his stuff on the floor, so stand over here, and can you two come up here? And Brooke, can you come up too? And so you all are sitting around talking. You're standing around talking. Just stand here and have a conversation, the four of you. Like, oh, okay, whatever. We're talking about. Hey, nice shirt, by the way. All right, cool. Dude, what's your shirt? Penn State. All right, good. And he drops this. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? There's four of them now. What are they going to do? What do you think what do you think you're going to do? Wait, hang on. He drops it. You all see him. It's not just this. It's papers strewn all over the floor. What do you think you're going to do?
Probably wait for someone else in your group to do it.
Do you think so? What do you think you'll do?
Or act like you didn't see it.
What do you think?
We're going to look at each other and see who's going to go get it first.
Yeah? What do you think?
Just see who will be trying to help him first so you can see if you get out of it.
Okay. Got it? Well, here, let me tell you what you'll do. As black people, one of you is going to help him pick it up. Almost all the time. Okay? Because you just are. Because that's just the nature of things. It's not because black people are special or whatever. Although you are. Black people aren't special. But the four of you are. Right? You're all good. Okay? So now, you stand up here. You all sit down. So now I need, can the three of you come up really fast? All right? I want to show you this. Nothing changes at all. So she drops it. What are you going to do?
Probably help her out.
If we're all in a group, probably kind of look at each other, be like, all right, yeah, maybe spring on it after deliberating.
Yeah? What do you think?
Yeah, see who's going to pick it up.
Yeah? What do you think?
I would probably help her.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. But here's the deal. Y'all, white people, much less likely to help her out. What happened? Why are black people going to help out and you're not going to? You're less likely to help out when there's just a few of you. What's going on? You will think, if I ask you, you're going to think like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And if like you all said, most of you all said like, yeah, I don't know, we might just stand there and look at it, right? No, the truth is you're going to help her out. Help him out. But here's the thing, invisible strings. What are the invisible strings coming down to black people this is in the U.S., that's going to lead them to mostly not change their behavior? They'll be a little less likely because there are a group of them. And so when we act in groups, there's this sort of group effect where people kind of sit back and be like, okay, maybe I will, maybe I won't, because you assume that somebody else has it, right? But what's going on here that they're less likely to help out? Now, because there's a group of them. What's the difference between white people and black people in this moment? What is that? What is it? White people. What is that? Invisible strings coming down, impacting us in some way. You want to know that. You want to understand these things. This is what it's about. If we don't understand those things, we don't understand our behavior. And if we don't understand that kind of behavior, how the hell are we going to ever figure out what we want to do, major in college? What kind of job am I going to be happy with? I can't even figure out if I'm going to stop and help someone pick up their books if they drop them on the floor. Or if I'm more likely or less likely to do that. And what is the difference in those strings? You got it? Do you see that? Do you see how profound that is? Do you see how much of our lives is being shaped by shit that we will never understand and we will never see? And then we start talking about it all the time and then we're denying it and we're always in this place of well, I don't know about that. And I think, okay, you got it? This is the news. This is what's happening. Moment after moment. Okay, thanks, man. Thanks, Tom. All right. Dude, that's not an example. I could switch the example around and use one that would show white people in a slightly better light. But I just don't have it on the top of my head, so I'm not going to give it to you. I'm just going to give that one. Here. All right, man. Ready? Hey, by the way, can I say something? Yeah, I can, because I have the microphone. Hey, by the way, did I answer your question well enough? Do you got it? You going to be happy? Yes, ma'am. Why are white people less likely? I don't know. That's what you want to study. You see what I mean? This is the power. This is what the kind of stuff we're doing all the time is trying to figure that out. Why would white people be less likely? I don't know. Maybe they feel kind of weird. Maybe there's that awkwardness of race relations, that there's I don't know. White people, we get weirded out about race stuff way more than we need to be. Like we're afraid, we're this, we're that. Just all sorts of things that maybe go on that we don't really understand. In some ways, we're more weirded out about race than we need to be, okay? And so there's a way in which in black Americans, they're just much more like, okay, whatever. Well, we'll just work this out. And we don't really understand that that's what's going on. And so that's what I think. Bro.
So was that a statistic?
Was it a what?
Yeah,
it was an experiment that people did. Yeah, there's so many experiments like this we're doing all the time. This is just constant, right? You study, here's one, right? So a buddy of mine, a guy, well, he's not, I wouldn't call him a buddy, but I would call this guy. One of the research that he does is he tries to understand when people go of different backgrounds, ancestors, when they go in for job interviews, how closely they sit to one another. And they really study the ways in which people of different ancestries will pull themselves apart a little bit. It's how is that? I have no idea. If I go into a job interview or anywhere, a conversation with someone, it doesn't matter who it is, I'm going to sit down in the chair and I'm going to move the chair and I'm going to just be in a place. And I think it's going to be the same regardless of who it is. And of course it's not. And that's the kind of stuff that we really we want to know. Okay, so here. Oh, wait, I know what I wanted to say. Hey, I don't take the piece on suicide and cutting lightly. Because, students at universities are at a really high risk for self-harm. And even if it's not self-harm that you all follow through with, it's self-harm that really just leads to many, many issues and many problems. So I don't take that lightly. So by all means, if you feel weird about talking to someone, talk to me. I don't know. But there's so many ways, so many places on campus. Okay, I get the very least direct you. Talk to Jeff. Jeff will direct you. Okay, I want to look at this. Why do people remain silent? So right now, the country, we're in turmoil because we have this judge who's been nominated to sit on the Supreme Court. We have this woman who's now come forward and said, hey, this thing happened to me with him X number of years ago. I never talked to anybody about it, except about 6 years ago I talked to my therapist. And now we're in this national debate about people remaining silent, people who are victims. Or just, and now we're in a national debate about why it is and how it is that people could experience something that's traumatic or troubling or problematic or disturbing and not speak about it. And those of you who have not spoken about it, have an experience, are listening to all sorts of people weighing in on how people should speak about it, they would speak about it, everybody thinks that they would, why wouldn't they? If you don't speak about it, it must not have happened. How can we believe you when you didn't tell anybody? All of these many things. Look, if the suicide rate is constant year after year, which means that the number of people who make the decision, in quotes, to take their own lives is constant, meaning that there must be factors and forces outside of our control that are shaping that deeply personal decision. How is it that the same wouldn't be in operation for someone who experiences something that's traumatic or troubling or problematic in their lives and yet doesn't talk about it? What are the factors, the invisible strings, the factors and forces that are at play that we don't understand? What's that? They must be at play. So then the question is, what are the factors and forces that keep people from speaking out? Because so many people don't speak out. If I could, I would. And I'm not going to do this, but I had this really cool idea to do it, and I'm not going to. But I had this idea that I would have, we're not doing this, but we have everyone put your heads down, and the people who have had some kind of traumatic experience of assault in some way, and never talked about it, raise your hands, and the camera at the top would just pan the room and look at the number of hands raised. We're not going to do it, but I know the number of hands would be really, really high. Why didn't you speak out? Why haven't you talked about it? Why didn't you say anything? And as a sociologist, what I know is that there are similarities with everybody, and that there are these factors and forces that come into play that we don't really understand and we don't really see, although we are studying them to understand. And they're at work all around us. And we all like to think that we're different. That I would speak out, or I would do it differently, or I would do this, or I would do that, and it would be me. If that happened to me, if I was that woman and that judge tried to tear or that guy, high school student, and again, if it was, it's alleged, so I don't know, but I'm going to go by what she's saying. If I was her, and that happened to me, even when I was a high school senior or whatever it was, I would have spoken out. I would have told somebody. Really? What if you wouldn't have? What if just like all the other things that happen in the world and that are definitely connected to this class, what if you wouldn't have helped somebody pick up their papers that they dropped on the floor? What if you would have helped a white person just the same? Because that's what we see. Right? See, the 4 white people, if it's a white person that dropped their things on the floor, they're more likely to help them. But it's the black person that they back away from. For the black people, it wouldn't really matter if it's a white person or a black person or a brown person. Basically, the rates are pretty much the same. But for white people, it changes. And it's not because they're racist. It's not that. There's something deeper that just stops us. And maybe it's the same kind of thing that's deeper that stops people from speaking. And I'm not even saying that it is. What if it is? How would that change the way we walk through the world? How would it change the way we walk through the world? Thinking about what we know and what we don't know. So here, let me give you one right now. So I need a, can I use you? Can you just have a seat right there? Yo, bro, can I borrow the stool really fast for a hot second? Okay, so here's this guy, did some research, right? There you are.
Thank you.
Turn toward me a little bit more, like that. You can turn the chair around. Yep. Okay. So, what's your name?
Rhonda?
Rhonda. Okay, Rhonda. So imagine Rhonda's here for an interview. I'm interviewing. And imagine that I'm 25 years younger. So I'm 30. I know. That's hard to imagine. But imagine that I am. Okay? 30 years old. Rhonda comes in for an interview. And I ask her some questions, right? In the middle of the interview, I say, hey, Rhonda. So anyway, yeah, so cool. Lovely working for us. I'd love to have you. Hey, do you have a boyfriend? Do you want to respond to that or not?
If I like the job, then I think I would be thinking that they can't really ask me that because
let me ask you something else. Hey, do people find you desirable?
Is this like out of the context of the job interview?
Yeah, we're just in the middle of the job interview. Hey, Rhonda, do people find you desirable?
I'm not sure how that relates to the job position or the.
How about this one? Hey, do you think women should wear bras in the workplace?
Maybe, probably. I mean,
So, what are the chances that you would answer those questions in the middle of the interview with some random 30-year-old guy?
probably slim to none.
Slim to none?
Right.
So, this guy sent an interview. This is a beautiful thing right here. So, this researcher, he sent a questionnaire out to young women like yourself, right? And he asked them, okay, if this happened, how many of you would not answer the questions, right? 2/3 of the people who responded to the interview said they would refuse to answer at least one of the questions, okay? And 2/3, and 16 of them said actually that they would walk out of the interview. Okay? Got it? Women in the class. Think about where you're at. Men in the class. What would you want for your sister, your mother, your girlfriend, whatever? Okay? Your friends. So then he said, okay, that's a lot of people who think that they would say nothing. Out of 197, 2/3 said, I'm going to, at least one of those questions I'm not going to answer. So then he said, let me set up a study. And let me just have people, bring people in for an interview. 0 out of 25 refused to answer a question or walked out of the interview. All 25 people in the study did exactly as he asked. Said what they thought about wearing bras in the workplace. Said what they thought about whether they were desirable. And revealed whether they had a boyfriend or not. Nobody walked out. So here's the question. Ready? Stay right there. So here's what it tells me. Rhonda, right here, just like all of us, has this idea about herself in her head. About, yeah, well, this is what I would do, and this is how I would be. But the truth is, Rhonda has these invisible strings that are coming down, and they're connected to her.
So everything is situational, though.
I'm just telling you, this is the data. So it wouldn't matter, though. You got it? If I put you in this, if I reproduce the study, the same thing's going to happen. And you can say, it's situational, but I don't know, and maybe I would, and maybe I wouldn't. But how is it that 0 out of 25? And then they reproduced again, and it was 0 out of whatever it was. Nobody walks out of the interview. Nobody refuses to answer a question. Everyone thinks that they would, and that this is really uncalled for, and this is a bad idea. That, my friends, is called being silent. And that's the process right there. That you think you would do something different, and you wouldn't, and you don't. And we're all doing that walking through life. It's happening all the time. So I see with you, even you did exactly what most people would do. I could bring up anybody in this class and they would respond the same way you did, and I could send you out for an interview across town. Some guy could ask you these questions and you wouldn't do a damn thing. You'd answer his questions and you wouldn't walk out. That's the invisible strings. And if that's happening, what makes you think that the young woman, as a young woman, this woman who has now come forward and said with the Supreme Court guy, hey, this is what he did to me, why is she so unbelievable? Because we think that we're believable, and we think we know what we would do, and we don't understand the invisible strings. But when you get the invisible strings and you understand the ways in which our behavior is being shaped, especially this kind of behavior, you're like, oh, I'm not any different. It's not situational, my friend. It's reality. And you're not as free as you think you are, and I'm not as free as I think I am. And none of us are. And it's profoundly disturbing. And on this issue, for all of those of you who have silenced, who are silent, men and women, for things that have happened to you, understand the invisible strings are coming down and they're connected, and you're your own tribe, you're your own team, you're your own group, and you're no more in control of that than I am in control of right now taking my shirt off and standing here in my undershirt. It's just not going to happen. The only way it's going to happen is if you really start to understand the ways in which we're like puppets. And then we see ourselves as puppets, and then we're like, oh, wait a minute, I can clip the strings. I get this. I can clip this one, and I can clip this one, but we never know to clip the strings if we don't think the strings are there. We can only do it after we understand that they're there. It's part of my life. Dude, what do you think about that?
It's food for thought.
Yeah. Say more.
I can kind of see it. Mm-hmm. I've noticed it in myself at times.
Mm-hmm. I see it in myself all the time. And I like to think that I'm a sociologist. You know what I mean? I like to think that I'm above this. Can I tell you a story? My wife and I, you ever see one of those big slides? Big slides like at an amusement park, and it's really high, and you climb a stair, and it does this and this and this, right? You see those slides, right? So my wife and I, when we were at this place called Cedar Point, this was years ago, and we were at the top. We were the only people on the slide. And there was this young college girl. Now, I'm a professor at this time. My wife, we're both professors. And we're seated at the top. And we got this like burlap sack, right? And we're sitting there ready to go. And there's this young woman like your age. And she was even high school. She said, okay, wait for these other people to come up because we're going to have a race. And Lori says to me, fuck that. Come on, let's go. You know what I mean? I know, she dropped the F-bomb. She's like, no, let's just go. And I'm like, oh no. She said we had to stay. We had to wait. She's like, dude, are you serious? No, we're going. Are you nuts? And those strings that came down for me saying, oh, this 18-year-old girl told me I should wait to go down the slide so that I could race the other people who were coming up the stairs. And I'm thinking, what is going on? I think I'm an individual acting on my own best
What if you just
interest.
internally wanted to race them?
I didn't want to race them. Are you kidding me? I had nothing I wanted to do with it. And I was stoned at the time, too. So, like, I really wanted to just, maybe at most, I wanted to sit at the top of the slide and just contemplate the fact that I was going to do this. And like, oh my God, can I make it down the slide? Like, whoo, all right. Because I think what happened, I had a brownie and it was just kicking in right at that moment. But that's neither here nor there. That's how powerful the strings are. Even brownies can't break the strings, you know. Anyway, got it? Dude, thanks, man.
The strings.
Yeah, the strings. Remember that. All right. Yo, bro, sorry, man. Okay, here. Ready? Oh, my God. The best part is coming, my friends. The best part is coming. All right. Hey, does anybody have any questions they want to throw out there really fast? We're going to talk about. All right, hang on one second. Yes, sir.
You were talking about the strings and like how you, if you understand them, you'll be able to cut them off.
Yeah. No,
Would it-
you wouldn't be able to cut them off, but you won't cut them off if you don't believe they exist. Got it? You probably can never cut them. Just like if I went back to that slide
'cause
and
that's
someone
what I
said
was-
that to me.
That's what I
I'd
was
put-
thinking, because like if you got the mentality that you could cut them and stuff like that, wouldn't that just be another string making you do that?
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. Yeah, maybe something that I'm like kind of kicking in. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. It's all really, it's pretty cosmic in a way. Wait, hang on one second. Yeah, bro.
So kind of going to what he was saying, would you say that cutting the strings is more just like what you said in the beginning of the class, like just challenging what we think we know?
Yeah, exactly. Challenging what we think we know and who we think we are and what we are and why we do the things we do. Yeah, it's really deeply complex, my friends. I say that as someone who has imbibed many things trying to figure it out for myself. Yeah, bro.
So when you were talking about like the whole interview thing, like just using this as an example, like if you already give someone like the preconception of like the strings and you give them like that whole talk before that interview, and then you send them for that interview, like
Yeah, if you were,
if you have the preconceived notion that you can do this and like you
Yeah.
realize that you can, do you think that would change anything?
nah, probably not much. But it would change something if you talked about the creepiness of men interviewing young women, asking weird questions. That would help. But otherwise, it probably wouldn't. You know. Anybody? Yeah. Anybody else have a question? Okay, let's talk about Ohio State. In that case, all right. So here's something. Hey, by the way, it's important to understand. I'm not saying we should believe the woman who said what she said about what happened to her with this potential Supreme Court justice. I'm not saying that. I don't know. Let the hearings play itself out and people can make decisions. I don't know. I know what I'm saying. I'm speaking as a sociologist about how profoundly interesting it is that all of these things are happening, that everybody thinks that they would act differently, and in fact, we mostly wouldn't. Okay? So here, let me just give you this one. Tribalism. Here. Objectification and tribalism. Here's a very simple one. Here's your whiteout, right? So this is what it's going to look like in a couple of days. Okay? And here's another one. So that's the kind of stuff. Some of you might get. Does anyone get dressed up, paint your bodies or whatever? Anybody do that here? Do you, bro? All right, man. What color? What's your favorite color? What? White? All right, dude, white. Wait, you're the one that did the Trump voice, right? Do you do a Trump voice with the white color? Do something in your phone in a Trump voice And when you're at the game, do something in a Trump voice, some kind of cheer, and send it to me. All right. Okay, here's Ohio State. That's the Ohio State Stadium. And there's the Ohio State fans, just as nutty as the Penn State fans. Look at that. Got it? And so here's the deal. Tribalism, it doesn't matter what the group is. Y'all think, here's the invisible string stuff, right? Again, y'all think though, like Penn State, yeah, you're a Penn State fan. Not all of you, but those of you who think you are, and you're these big rabid Penn State fans. And it's like, it doesn't matter that you're a Penn State. Penn State's not the greatest school. It's not the best school in the Big Ten. It's not better than OSU. It's just because you're here. If you were at Penn State, it would be different. And you so quickly can just get you to change sides. It really doesn't matter. Just like those of you whose parents randomly moved to Pittsburgh as opposed to Philadelphia, suddenly, hate Philadelphia and love Pittsburgh. It's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're only at Penn State because at Ohio State somebody accidentally lost your application, or you would have gotten into Penn State or Ohio State, and then that would be you. This guy right there, or this nut right there. You know what I mean? It's like instead of, this guy back, one of these nuts right here. And it wouldn't matter. And we think we're controlling these decisions, and we're not controlling these decisions. It's just about being part of a tribe. And you can socialize people to be part of that tribe. It's actually really, really simple. And then once we get them to be part of the tribe, it's just you play on the emotion. And once you play on the emotion, then we got it. And once you see this kind of thing, it's why I can never be part of anything, really, in a way. Because the more I'm part, if I go to a game, and I understand this stuff, right? And so I go to a game, and like the wave happens, and I just can't, I'm seeing the strings, and I'm just like, oh my God, and then the wave comes to me, and I just go, okay, because I can't do it, because I see this. And I see the tribalism, but tribalism can be really good because we want to be part of things and we want to engage. But tribalism can also be very problematic because it can lead to groupthink. And when it leads to groupthink, it leads to it's like the group becomes more powerful than any one of the individuals. And the individuals will make decisions and think things that they would never think as individuals, but they'll do it as a group. It's almost like with the 4 people who are here, they wouldn't act in that way if they were alone. But when they're together, they don't reach out and go and do what they would ordinarily do. And same thing with the group think. It leads us to make decisions to engage in ways that we ordinarily wouldn't engage. So here, like in fraternities and sororities, like when you haze. It's like, I have an example from years ago. This fraternity, it was hazing. And they got these guys to stand up on the roof. The older brother stood up on the roof and pulled, check this out, right? Amazing. Of their fraternity house. And the older brothers, they got up there and they pulled their pants down and they took a dump off the edge of the roof. And the pledges had to be at the bottom and catch it in a bucket. And I am telling you, there is not a single person in this room that would say, oh, yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, all right. I'm going to drink a little bit of alcohol, maybe not. I'm going to get my bucket, and I'm going to go over and catch some shit coming out of the rear end of my future brother right here. Because that sounds like a lot of fun. There's nobody in this class or anywhere at Penn State that would say, yeah, I would do that because that's pretty cool and that's fun. And yet, not a single pledge said no. I'll say yes. We say yes to lots and lots of things, my friends, because of the pressure of the group. And that's how it operates. And that's where we go. These irrational assessments of reality. All to be able to put one of those colors and some of those letters wherever you put them. I don't know, tattoo them on your ass or whatever. I don't know, whatever you do. That's groupthink. This stuff is at play all the time. like decisions, the kind of racist things that happen. You know, like when someone gets caught doing something really racist, and they say, "Oh my God, that's just not me. I got caught up in the moment," and we never believe them. Like, no, that really is you. Well, it's no more that person than it is that person who was catching poop in a bucket that was coming out of somebody's wazoo up on a roof. That's not really that person, because it probably will never happen again in their lives. So this is how we operate. So here, take a look at this. Let me talk about Joe Paterno and Urban Meyer for a hot minute. Okay? So here's Ohio State fans. Me too. Me too. So he's taking the Me Too hashtag. Me too. You understand what Urban Meyer is accused of, in case you aren't aware. So he had an assistant coach, and I think it's an assistant coach he's been working with for many, many years. And this assistant coach is married, a wife. He had 2 or 3 kids with his wife. And he's accused of beating her up, emotionally abusing her and physically abusing her. And so police were called a few times. There's a photo of her with bruises on her arm. You know, it's like nothing's really come out because this stuff just kind of gets silenced in some way, right? And I don't know. You don't know. I was never there. I have no idea. She says, look, this is real. This has happened. People around me know it's happened. And at some point in time, I sat down with the head coach's wife, Urban Meyer. She has testified to this. I sat down with her and I said, look, Urban needs to know what's been going on in my household. That Zach, her name is Courtney, Zach, her husband, Urban's assistant coach, has been abusing me really seriously. And Urban Meyer's wife says, well, you know I'm going to have to tell Urban. According to her, she says, Urban's wife told me I'm going to have to tell Urban. And she says, yeah, I understand that. And what Urban Meyer and his wife say is that his wife never actually told Urban. And that's why it was 2.5 to 3 years later that this came out. Because Urban never knew. Because his wife never told him. So now what you have to understand is, hang on a minute. Is it possible that Urban Meyer's wife didn't tell her husband that his assistant coach is beating up this woman to the extent to which I think at one point she went to the hospital? I think. That's my memory of it. Is that possible? Like my wife, as someone who works for us, and told Lori about it. Someone that works for me, I don't know, Jeff. And Jeff is doing, and then somebody tells my wife about Jeff, but my wife doesn't tell me. What's the likelihood of that? What's the likelihood of that? Give your assessment. What do you think? What's the likelihood of that? That's what's on the table here. So then Urban Meyer got a 3-game suspension from Penn State. Okay? So now, those of you who aren't aware, what Joe Pa was accused of was being told that Jerry Sandusky, one of his former coaches, told it multiple times, was a serial abuser of young boys. And what Mike McQueary said, one of his assistant coaches, grew up in State College, played quarterback on the team, ultimately became an assistant coach, was in the locker room late at night on a Friday or Saturday night, heard this sound in the showers, look over, and there is Jerry Sandusky having sex with a young boy. So what Mike McQueary said was, freaked out. I left. I mean, my God, right? And he told his father, and then they went and they told Joe Paterno. And Joe Paterno told the administration, the president. And the president says, okay, I'll take care of it. And Joe Paterno washed his hands of it because he said, I did what I was supposed to do. So here's my question. Why is it so hard for many Ohio State fans to imagine that Urban Meyer's wife actually did tell him? Because we all would tell, would we not? We think we would. So it's hard for them to imagine that Urban Meyer's wife did tell him, and that he knew, and that he didn't do anything. And why is it difficult for Penn State fans to imagine that Mike McQueary, who has no reason to make up a story in a million years, is telling the truth? And that actually did happen, and that's what Joe Paterno did. He went to the president, and he did nothing else. Because he did what he was supposed to do and so on. What if that had been reversed? And what if it was Urban Meyer that went and told the president of the university at Ohio State? How many Penn State fans would be saying, oh, he should do more. He should have done more. What do you mean? He just went to his boss and said, and that's it, and he washes his hands of it? What the hell is that? And the Ohio State fans, if it had been reversed. But somehow we get in these tribes, and the tribes allow us to make very irrational assessments of reality based on what it is we want to believe and think is true, according to our view of the world and the view of the other members of our tribe. That's how we operate. So I don't know what happened in the Paterno-Sandusky case. I was here. And I met Sandusky, I met Paterno, McQueer, everybody. I don't know what happened in Ohio State. I still don't know what happened at Penn State. But I see these two things, and it's really fascinating. That right now, the Ohio State students they can come up with all sorts of reasons why their coach is fine. And the Penn State students can come up with all sorts of reasons why our coach was fine. Back then, you all don't even mostly pay attention to it now. And we get in this kind of narrow space. And then my question is, how often are we doing that all throughout our lives and with regard to race and ethnic relations? What do we really know about other people? Mexicans who are coming over the border. What do you know about them? What do you know about their motivations for being here, or what they do and how they do it? What do we know about all sorts of the Iranians right now? Oh, they're our latest enemy, the Iranians. What do you know about the Iranians? Do we really know that the Chinese love Donald Trump because he has such a big, big brain, as he said yesterday? How do we know he doesn't have such a big, big brain? I love that guy. Oh my God. Did you hear that's what he said, right? The Chinese, they love me because I have such a big, big brain, you know. Oh my God. I wish he was my uncle. Yeah. I could swear I could spend every day with that guy. He's just a nonstop comedian, man. I love that guy. Jesus. Look, man. So one of the things that happened, I'm going to tell you this really interesting story, and then I'll be done. One of the things that happened in the Sandusky scandal, it was really pretty fascinating. I'm just going to hang on. Give me a second. I'm going to drop this in the room, and I'll just leave you on this. Because we were right in the middle of it, by the way. On the day after Paterno was fired, we were filming for a television show in here. And we had like 5 cameras going, and we had, Lori and I were really 2 of the very first people at Penn State to speak about it. And the top of the room was all media, man. It was the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Washington Post, everything, everybody, right? And we did this class on the scan, on what happened. And it was utterly, we didn't know anything, but we did a class on this stuff that I'm talking about today, right? One of the things we found was it was the only time ever in all of our time in talking about Penn State that white students understood race relations. Because what was happening was the Penn State students, everywhere y'all went, people started calling you out, just like they do now, right? Those of you who were coming here, oh, you're going to pedophile you, oh, right? So you get that, right? That's what Ohio State's getting right now, by the way. So don't throw it at them this weekend. Part of this hospitality campaign this weekend is don't be assholes. Because when you point one finger out at somebody else, 3 fingers are coming back at you. So you can critique Ohio State like urban liar, urban new, urban that. Really? Well, Joe Pa liar and Joe Pa knew, and all the same stuff could be thrown right at you. Pedophile you. If Urban's a liar, then Penn State is pedophile you. It's the same thing that's coming back. Be hospitable. The Ohio State fans have nothing to do with anything that happened among their coaches. So when you see the Ohio State fans, like, yo, give them a high five. And besides, we beat them like 3 times in basketball last year. So when our basketball team beats Ohio State 3 times in 1 year, you got to be kind to them. And like, look, they have nothing to do with it. So look, here's my final thing. I swear, I'll do this in 1 minute. So that's the first thing. Don't be jerks, because it looks bad for you. Because every bad act that you commit, it just goes back to us showing like what idiots Penn State people are. So here's my thing, 60 seconds, white people. So white people started going on around back at home, Thanksgiving, the whole thing, and everyone's just attacking them for being Penn Staters, right? And so what white people did, what did they do? They started to wear more Penn State gear. They started to rally around each other. They started just like members of minority groups in the United States, historically speaking, when they experience racism and discrimination in some way, you rally around one another. So Penn State students started to rally around one another, and Penn State white students started to wear gear, and they were really loud, and they were really proud. It's like, yeah, I'm from Penn State, come at me, MFer, right? And for the first time, they understood what it was like to be black and brown in the United States, and people talked about that, and it was really cool. Have a safe weekend, and be well.